Hey guys, tonight we're going to explore a fear that is as old as humanity itself. It's that quiet, creeping feeling that something is wrong, that your run of bad luck is more than just coincidence. It's the unsettling thought that someone, somewhere, wishes you ill, and that their ill will has a power all its own. We're journeying into the ancient world to see how people dealt with this dread, not by waiting to be afflicted, but by building a constant, daily defense against it. We're going to learn how ancient cultures tried to prevent curses. From the bustling streets of Rome to the dusty markets of the East, we will become collectors of magical defenses, seekers of amulets, spells, and rituals designed to ward off the evil that lurks in a neighbor's envious stare or an enemy's whispered malediction. Now for our little reality check in a world without germ theory, without modern medicine, without economic forecasting. A curse was one of the most logical explanations for misfortune. Why did your olive harvest suddenly fail? Why did your child come down with a fever? Why did your prized racehorse go lame? It was so much more satisfying to blame the sour-faced old woman down the lane who muttered at you last week than it was to accept the mundane reality of blight. Bacteria or a bad bet. A curse gave misfortune a face and, more importantly, it offered the hope that it could be defended against with the right tools. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the magic charm that keeps this channel going. And as always, I love seeing our community light up the map. So drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your world is one of parchment and ink, of quiet libraries and the ordered columns of accounting ledgers. You are a scribe, living and working in Rome in the turbulent final years of the Republic. You are in the service of a man named Lucius Cornelius Scipio, a senator of immense wealth and influence, a man whose family name is etched into the very history of Rome. Or, at least, he was a man of great influence. Lately, his fortune has begun to sour, and with it, his mind. You spend your days in his villa on the Palatine Hill, a place of cool marble floors, vibrant frescoes, and gardens filled with the sound of fountains. It is an island of tranquility amidst the chaos of the city below, but a shadow has fallen over this house, a shadow of fear that emanates from your patron himself. The summons comes late one night. You are brought not to the grand receiving room, but to his private study. The room is a fortress of knowledge, its walls lined with scrolls from across the known world. But tonight, the knowledge offers no comfort. Lucius is pacing, his face, usually so composed and imperious, is pale and drawn. He is a man haunted. "They are destroying me," he whispers, his voice a dry rasp. He gestures for you to sit. He, however, continues to pace. "My last shipment of grain from Egypt, lost in a storm the likes of which the sailors had never seen. My best racehorse, the pride of my stable, broke its leg in its stall this morning, and I have not had a night of peaceful sleep in a month. My joints ache. My food tastes of ash. The physicians say it is gout and the humors of old age. Fools, they cannot see what is plain." He stops at his desk and picks up a small, cloth-wrapped bundle. He unfurls it, his hands trembling slightly. Inside are several strange objects, a lead tablet, thin as a leaf, inscribed with strange symbols and what look like names, a crude clay figurine of a man, pierced with a bronze pin, and a handful of bent. "Rusty nails? These were found buried near my gate," he says, his eyes wide with a mixture of terror and furious certainty. "This is maleficium, witchcraft. My enemies in the Senate, they are too cowardly to face me in the forum. So they resort to these back-alley methods. They are using magic to drain my life, my fortune, my very soul. You look at the objects. You are an educated man, a student of logic and rhetoric. Your first instinct is to think of rational explanations. But you are also a man of your time. You know that people believe in these things. You know that all across the city, from the squalid tenement blocks to the villas of the wealthy. People make offerings and whisper incantations to unseen powers. The belief in curses is as real as the stone of the Colosseum. I will not be undone by shadows, Lucius says, his voice gaining a feverish intensity. I will not be a withered fool, waiting for the next magical attack. I will build a shield, a great shield, made of all the wisdom of the world. He turns and fixes his gaze on you. And you, he says, you will build it for me. Your heart begins to pound. This is not a request to copy a text or balance an account. You are my most trusted scribe. He continues. You are clever, you are discreet, and you read Greek as easily as you read Latin. I am commissioning you for a great work. You will travel. You will go to Greece, to Egypt, to the ancient lands of the East. You will speak with their priests, their sorcerers, their wise women. You will learn every method of preventing curses known to man, every amulet, every chant, every protective ritual, every guardian spirit. You will document it all. You will create for me a great encyclopedia of apotropaic magic, a shield of wisdom, so that I may defend myself. I will fund everything. You will have letters of introduction to my contacts in every province. Your patron wants you to become the world's first traveling encyclopedia of paranormal defense. This was not covered in your standard scribe training. You are stunned into silence. It is a mad quest, born of a rich man's paranoia. But it is also the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to see the world, to study its deepest and most secret beliefs. It is a dangerous, strange, and irresistible commission. You accept. Good, Lucius says. A flicker of his old command returning. But your journey begins here. Before you leave, you must first master the protections of Rome itself. I want a complete record. Leave no stone unturned. Start now. And so, your strange quest begins not on a ship, but in the libraries and on the streets of Rome. You delve into the city's deep-seated beliefs about magical protection, moving from the official state religion, the religio, into the murky, more personal world of superstitio. Your first area of study is the most common form of protection, the amulet. You document the bulla, the locket of gold or leather worn by every Roman boy of good family. It is given to him at birth and worn until he comes of age. A constant, silent guardian against sickness and malevolent spirits during the vulnerable years of childhood. You note how it is a symbol of status, but also a deeply ingrained magical tradition. Then you investigate the most ubiquitous and uniquely Roman of all protective charms, the fascinum. The phallic charm, you find it everywhere. Once you start looking for it, carved into the walls of buildings, hung as wind chimes on shop doors, worn as pendants around the necks of soldiers, even painted on the walls of bakeries. The Romans believed that the image of the phallus, a symbol of generative life force, was a powerful defense against the evil eye and the curse of envy and invidia. Its aggressive, potent nature was thought to actively repel bad luck. It's a very assertive form of home security. You move from amulets to household spirits. You spend time observing the lararium, the small shrine found in every Roman home. From the humblest apartment to Lucius's own grand villa. Here, the family worships the lares and penates, the guardian spirits of the household, the pantry, and the family's good fortune. You watch as the head of a family makes a small daily offering of food and wine, a simple act of piety to ensure the home remains a safe, protected space, a sanctuary from the dangers of the outside world. Lucius has a magnificent lararium, staffed by its own priest, but it has clearly failed to calm his fears. This leads you to a key question. one that Roman thinkers themselves debate. What is the line between proper religious observance, religio, and fearful, excessive belief, superstitio? Making an offering at the lararium is seen as a pious duty. But what about the other things people do? Your research takes you into more obscure practices. You learn about the use of magic nails. You find a blacksmith in a dark alley in the Sabura district who sells them. He tells you that if you drive a nail that has been bent into a magical shape, or better yet, a nail taken from a place of great power or suffering, into the door frame of your house, it will fix or nail down your good fortune, preventing it from being stolen by a curse. Lucius, in his paranoia, has already had several such nails, purchased at great expense, driven into the walls of his villa. The practice seems to straddle a line between faith and fear, and you meticulously document it. You learn about protective gestures, the things people do with their hands without even thinking. The mano fico, or fig sign, where the thumb is clenched between the first and second fingers. A gesture meant to ward off evil. You see market women make the sign when a rival looks too long at their produce. You learn about the power of words, of spoken formulas and incantations, often containing nonsense syllables and foreign-sounding names of power, whispered to make a protective charm more potent. You gather all this information, filling scrolls with your neat, precise script. You describe the materials used, the times of day they are employed, the gods they are meant to invoke: Janus for doorways, Forculus for doors, Cardia for hinges. Every part of a Roman's life, you realize, is surrounded by a thin, invisible wall of preventative magic. A constant, low-level effort to keep the chaotic, hostile forces of the universe at bay after several weeks. Your initial research is complete. You have compiled a comprehensive, if unsettling, record of Roman apotropaic magic. You present your findings to Lucius. He reads your scrolls with a hungry, feverish intensity, nodding to himself. "Good," he says when he is finished. "This is a fine start, but it is only the beginning." The Greeks. They have a deeper understanding of the evil eye. The Egyptians. Their magic is as old as the Nile itself. And the sorcerers of the East. They traffic with demons we can only dream of. You must go. Learn their secrets. Bring them back to me. He provides you with a heavy purse of gold coins, enough to fund your travels for a year or more. He gives you sealed letters of introduction, addressed to powerful Roman governors and wealthy merchants in the provinces, instructing them to give you any aid you require. Your preparations are complete. You leave the grand, fearful villa on the Palatine Hill and make your way through the crowded, noisy streets of Rome one last time. You travel the road to Ostia, the city's great port, a bustling hub of commerce and humanity. You stand on the docks, the salty air a sharp contrast to the familiar smells of the city. The sea stretches out before you, a vast blue expanse of possibility and danger. Ships from every corner of the Mediterranean are here, their sails a forest of white. You look at your bag, containing your writing tools, your blank parchments, and your patron's gold. You are no longer just a scribe. You are an explorer, a collector of fears and their remedies. Your strange and perilous quest has truly begun. You find passage on a merchant vessel bound for Corinth. Your first destination, the ancient, magic-haunted lands of Greece. The sea journey from Ostia to Corinth is an education in itself. You, a man of letters and quiet libraries, are thrust into the cramped, boisterous, and deeply superstitious world of sailors. The ship is a microcosm of the ancient world's anxieties. The mast is adorned with a motley collection of charms: a dried eagle's foot for sharp sight, a pouch of salt to appease the sea gods, and a crudely carved phallus, the familiar Roman fascinum, for general good luck. The sailors, You learn. Have a complex and deeply serious set of rules governed by superstition. They never mention a pig by name at sea, it is always the curly-tailed one. They believe whistling can summon a storm. You watch them, documenting their beliefs in your notes. Realizing that this fear of unseen forces is not just the paranoia of a wealthy senator, but a fundamental part of the human experience. After weeks at sea, you arrive at the great port of Corinth. The city is a vibrant, chaotic crossroads of the Roman world. As a major trading hub, it is a swirling mix of cultures: Greeks, Romans, Egyptians, Jews, all hawking their wares and speaking their own tongues. The massive stone peak of the Acrocorinth, the city's ancient acropolis, looms over everything, a silent stone guardian. Your patron's letter of introduction leads you to a wealthy Greek merchant named Demetrios, a man who does business with Lucius and has agreed to house you during your studies. Demetrios is a jovial, pragmatic man who finds your mission utterly fascinating. Ah, the old fears, he says with a laugh when you explain your purpose. A Roman nobleman afraid of curses? Some things never change here in Greece. We have our own anxieties. You will learn much here, but you must learn to see with new eyes. Your first lesson comes not from a book, but from the bustling marketplace, the agora. You are walking with Demetrios when you pause to admire a stall of magnificent black figure pottery. One vase, depicting a scene from the labors of Heracles, is particularly exquisite. That is beautiful, you say aloud to the potter, your voice filled with genuine admiration. Truly the work of a master. The potter's reaction is immediate and alarming. His face, which had been beaming with pride, pales. He mutters something under his breath that sounds like apto, and quickly, almost involuntarily, makes a strange gesture with his hand, extending his index and little fingers like horns. Demetrios gently pulls you away. What was that, you ask, confused. Did I offend him? Offend him? Demetrios chuckles. My young Roman friend, you terrified him. You praised his work too openly, with too much admiration. You risked inviting the smati, the eye. Demetrios explains. The evil eye. We call it Bascania. It is the belief that a look of strong emotion, particularly envy, but even excessive admiration like yours can carry a destructive power. Your praise, though well-intentioned, could have caused that beautiful vase to crack on the potter's wheel tonight. The horned hand he made was to ward off your unintended magical assault. Apparently, telling a potter his vase is beautiful is the ancient equivalent of shouting, "This ship is unsinkable." You've learned a valuable lesson in the art of the backhanded compliment. This encounter opens the door to your true study. You begin to see the evil eye everywhere. It is the single greatest spiritual fear that underpins daily life in Greece. It is a curse that requires no spell, no ritual, no lead tablet. It can be delivered unintentionally. A silent, invisible arrow launched from an envious heart, and so. The defenses against it are equally pervasive. Woven into the very fabric of the culture, you spend your days interviewing potters, weavers, fishermen, and mothers. You fill your scrolls with notes on the endless ways the Greeks protect themselves. The most common defense is the amulet. You see them on everyone and everything. Small blue beads of glass, with a stylized eye painted on them, are worn as bracelets and necklaces, hung over the doors of homes, and tied to the rigging of fishing boats. Demetrios explains the principle similia similibus, like defeats, like the gaze of a false eye meets the gaze of the real evil eye and deflects its power. It is a magical decoy. Everyone here wears a blue glass eyeball to protect them from other people's eyeballs. It's a fascinating, if slightly creepy, magical arms race. You discover other amulets as well. Small charms shaped like the head of the Gorgon Medusa are popular. Her terrifying face and snake-filled hair, which could turn men to stone in myth. are believed to be so horrifying that they scare away any malevolent spirits or envious glances. You also learn of more organic charms: a clove of garlic carried in a pocket, a bat's bone sewn into the hem of a tunic. The belief that these things, by their very nature, are repellent to evil. You document the protective gestures: the mano cornuta, the horned hand. You see often, but you also learn of the power of spitting. A man will see a beautiful child and immediately spit on the ground 3 times to show he is not envious. The act of spitting seen as a way of expelling any nascent ill will. You see a mother, after hearing her baby praised, discreetly spit into the child's clothes for protection. Your research uncovers even more subtle and fascinating practices. You learn from a midwife that some parents will give their most beautiful and cherished child a deliberately ugly or demeaning nickname. A boy with stunning eyes might be lovingly called Frog Face by his own mother. The logic is heartbreakingly simple by verbally downplaying the child's beauty. You make him a less appealing target for the envy of others, both human and divine. It is a preemptive verbal shield. This leads you to a deeper understanding of the Greek psyche. This fear of the evil eye is not just superstition, it's a powerful social leveling mechanism. Classicists and folklorists of a distant future will debate its psychological origins. But you see it in action. It discourages excessive pride or ostentatious displays of wealth. To boast too much about your good fortune, to praise your own children too loudly, is to tempt fate, to invite the destructive envy of your neighbors and, more importantly, the gods themselves. It is the cultural embodiment of the fear of hubris and the inevitable. Crushing nemesis that follows, you keep your head down, you act with humility, and you don't draw too much attention to yourself. To be too fortunate is to be in peril. Of course, the evil eye is not their only fear. You spend time in the temples, particularly the sanctuary of Asclepius, the god of healing. Here, you see another form of preventative magic intertwined with formal religion. The walls are covered in ex-votos, small, sculpted reliefs made of terracotta or marble. They are offerings from worshippers, depicting the body parts that have been healed or that they pray will be protected from illness. There are hundreds of them sculpted: ears, eyes, legs, hands, even internal organs. It is a public library of ailments and hopes, a constant negotiation with the divine to ward off the sicknesses that were so often seen as a form of divine or demonic attack. You also learn of the concept of miasma, a kind of spiritual pollution or stain that can be incurred through bloodshed, sacrilege, or contact with the dead. A person afflicted with miasma is a danger to the whole community, and they must undergo rituals of purification, or katharmos, which often involves sacrifices and cleansing with seawater. To restore their purity and protect the city from the anger of the gods, you fill your scrolls. You meticulously draw the different types of eye amulets. You write down the protective formulas you overhear. You describe the gestures, the social customs, the temple practices. You buy a string of blue glass eye beads for your patron, and another for yourself. Feeling a strange mixture of scholarly detachment and genuine, superstitious caution, after several months, you feel you have a deep understanding of the Hellenic approach to magical defense. It is a system built on deflecting envy, on humility, and on maintaining a state of purity. Your work in Corinth is done. Demetrios secures you passage on a grain ship bound for Alexandria, the great metropolis at the mouth of the Nile. As you stand on the deck of the ship, leaving the shores of Greece behind, you feel the weight of the knowledge you have gathered. Your patron's encyclopedia is beginning to take shape, but you also know that you are heading towards a land where magic is far older, stranger, and more deeply connected to the machinery of life, death, and eternity. You are heading to Egypt, where the gods wear the heads of animals and the dead are armed with spells to protect them on their journey through the underworld. Your own journey into the world's ancient fears is about to get much deeper. Your ship glides into the great harbor of Alexandria, and you are greeted by a sight of such staggering scale and beauty, it makes even the grandeur of Rome seem provincial. Guiding you into port is the Pharos, the great lighthouse, a colossal tower of white marble that soars into the sky, its polished bronze mirror flashing the sun's light for miles out to sea. It is one of the wonders of the world, a testament to the genius and ambition of this city. Founded by Alexander the Great and now the intellectual heart of the Hellenistic world, the city itself is a fusion of cultures. Grand Greek colonnades and gymnasia stand alongside ancient, imposing temples dedicated to Egyptian gods. The language of the street is a chaotic symphony of Greek, Egyptian, Coptic, and Latin. Your patron's letter of introduction leads you not to a merchant's villa, but to the very center of the city's intellectual life, the Great Library. You are granted access as a visiting scholar, a junior member in a global community of knowledge seekers. The city has a library so large it supposedly contains all the knowledge of mankind. Your first thought is that your patron, Lucius, would probably want you to copy the entire thing. Your guide within the library is a man named Stasibius, a Greek scholar with a deep and abiding fascination for the native Egyptian traditions that surround him. He is old, his hands stained with ink, and his eyes hold the weary patience of a man who has read 10,000 scrolls. When you explain your mission to compile an encyclopedia of curse prevention, he nods slowly. A worthy, if endless, task, he says, his voice raspy. You have come to the right place. The magic of Egyptus is as old as the black soil of the Nile. But to understand their protections, you must first understand their defining obsession, death. This, you learn, is the fundamental difference between the magic of Greece and that of Egypt. For the Greeks, magic was primarily for the problems of the living warding off the envious glance, curing a sickness, ensuring a good harvest. For the Egyptians, that is only half the story. Magic is absolutely essential for the dead. The journey through the underworld, the Duat, is a perilous one, filled with monstrous demons and terrifying trials. An undefended soul is a lost soul. Therefore, their protective magic, especially their amulets, are designed to serve both in this life and, more importantly, in the next. Your research begins in the teeming markets outside the library's hallowed walls. Here you see amulets for sale in overwhelming variety. They are not the simple glass beads of Greece. They are intricate objects, exquisitely carved from semi-precious stones and a brilliant blue-green ceramic material you learn is called faience. Every shape, every material, every color has a deep, symbolic meaning. You start by documenting the most common and powerful symbols. The first is the Ankh, the looped cross that you see everywhere, from the grand reliefs on temple walls to small pendants worn by common folk. Ctesibius explains that it is the hieroglyph for life. It represents eternal life, breath, and divine vitality. To wear an Ankh is to constantly affirm life and health, creating a protective field that is anathema to decay and sickness. It is the ultimate general-purpose shield. Next, you encounter the scarab beetle. You see them carved from dark stones like hematite and shimmering blue faience. At first, you are puzzled. Why would a humble dung beetle be a symbol of power? An old Egyptian priest you consult in a small temple dedicated to Thoth explains the profound solar symbolism. He tells you to watch the beetle, how it diligently rolls a ball of dung across the earth. This, he explains, is a mirror of the great god Khopri, the scarab-headed aspect of the sun god Ra who rolls the sun across the sky each day, bringing a new dawn. The beetle, which also lays its eggs in a ball of dung from which new life emerges, is therefore the ultimate symbol of creation, transformation, and rebirth. So, the most powerful symbol of rebirth and divine solar power is a beetle that pushes around a ball of dung all day. You write in your notes. It is a lesson in not judging by appearances, I suppose. You learn that the scarab is especially important for the dead. A large scarab amulet, known as a heart scarab, was a crucial component of the mummification process. It was placed over the heart of the deceased, often inscribed with a spell from the Book of the Dead. Ctesibius shows you a copy of this spell, Chapter 30b. The inscription is a direct appeal to the deceased's own heart, imploring it not to bear witness against them during the final judgment, when the heart is weighed against the feather of Maat, the goddess of truth and cosmic order. The amulet is a magical gag order, designed to silence the conscience of the dead. Then there is the Eye of Horus, or the Ujjat. This symbol is perhaps even more ubiquitous than the Ankh. It is a stylized human eye, combined with the markings of a falcon. You learn the myth behind it. The sky god Horus, son of Isis and Osiris, battled his wicked uncle Set for the throne of Egypt. In the fight, Set tore out Horus's left eye, ripped it to pieces, and scattered them. The god of wisdom, Thoth, painstakingly reassembled the eye, healing it with his magic. The restored eye, the Ujjat, therefore became the ultimate symbol of healing, restoration, protection, and wholeness. It is a powerful shield against all forms of harm. While the Greek eye bead is a simple decoy, the Eye of Horus is a complex emblem of divine triumph over chaos and injury. Your studies uncover dozens of other amulets. The Jed Pillar, a strange symbol resembling a tiered column, represents the backbone of the god Osiris, who was murdered and dismembered before being resurrected. As such, it is a potent charm for stability, strength, and endurance, both in life and in death. Where it was placed near the mummy's spine, the Tayet, or knot of Isis, resembles the Ankh but with its arms drooping. It is a symbol of the goddess Isis's protective power and is associated with the life-giving properties of her blood. You realize that for the Egyptians, the material and color of an amulet were just as important as its shape. You spend time with an artisan in his dusty workshop as he drills tiny holes in carnelian beads. He explains that red stones like carnelian are linked to blood, power, and vitality. Green stones, like turquoise or malachite, are symbols of new life, vegetation, and fertility. The brilliant blue of lapis lazuli mirrors the sky, the realm of the gods, and the shimmering blue-green of faience. The most common material was called chianet by the Egyptians, a word that means that which is brilliant or gleaming. They believed its color was symbolic of life and rebirth. The magic was not just an idea, it was physically present in the substance of the charm itself. This entire system reveals the core of Egyptian magical thought. While a Roman might drive a nail into his wall to fix his luck in a somewhat crude, practical manner, an Egyptian would wear an amulet that connected him directly to the grand, eternal myths of his most powerful gods. Egyptologists in the distant future will debate the relationship between the official state religion and these personal magical practices. You see the answer clearly. There is no separation. The common man borrows the power of the greatest gods for his own everyday needs. He wears the life-giving symbol of the gods, the eye of the victorious sky god, the backbone of the resurrected king of the underworld. It is a democratization of divine power, a way for every individual to wrap themselves in the protective mantle of the cosmos. You spend months in Alexandria, haunting the library by day and the temple precincts and markets by evening. Your scrolls fill with detailed drawings of the amulets, notes on their associated myths, and a list of the materials and colors used in their creation. The Egyptians, you conclude, have a fascinating approach to the afterlife. It's less rest in peace and more, here are 100 magical charms, a detailed map, and a book of cheat codes for the final boss battle. You have to admire their level of preparation. You have documented a world of passive, symbolic defense, an ankh on a necklace, a scarab in a tomb. These are shields. Silent guardians waiting to repel an attack. But as you speak with more people, particularly those who deal in magic on the city's fringes, you begin to hear whispers of another kind of protection, a more proactive, more aggressive magic. Not a shield, but a sword. You hear tales of lead tablets inscribed with curses, designed to bind an enemy or a rival in a legal case, and, more importantly, for your research. You learn of counterspells, of rituals designed not just to defend, but to actively attack and neutralize a magical threat before it can even be launched. Your curiosity, the driving force of your mission, is piqued. You have studied the shield. Now, you must learn about the spear. Your next phase of research in the ancient land of Egypt will take you away from the clean, well-lit halls of the Great Library and into the world of binding spells, curse tablets, and a more confrontational form of magical warfare. Your study of the passive, protective power of amulets is complete, but it feels like you have only read half of the story. You have learned how the Egyptians build their shields. Now you must learn how they forge their swords. You begin to hear whispers, not in the hallowed halls of the Great Library, but in the crowded, noisy beer houses of the Rakotis district, the old Egyptian quarter of Alexandria. You seek a different kind of knowledge now, a darker and more practical magic. And for that, you must seek a different kind of teacher. Your scholarly contacts are of no use here. This is the world of superstitio, not religio. This is magic for hire. After days of discreet inquiries, of buying drinks for off-duty sailors and paying small coins for rumors, you are given a name and a location. You're looking for a man who writes petitions to the gods of the underworld. The search leads you to a cramped, dusty room tucked away in a maze of back alleys. The air inside is thick with the smell of old papyrus, charcoal dust, and something else. Something metallic and vaguely unsettling. Here you find him an old scribe. His eyes clouded with cataracts, hunched over a low table. He is not a priest or a grand magician. He is a craftsman, a technician of the supernatural. He agrees to speak with you. His price named and paid without pleasantry. You wish to know of bindings, of deficciones, he rasps, gesturing with an ink-stained hand to the tools of his trade. On the table are thin, dull gray sheets of lead, sharp bronze styluses, and small pots of black ink. The amulets you have studied are for children and the hopeful. They are prayers to the gods above. This, he says, tapping a lid sheet, is a demand made to the gods below. It is not a shield, it is a manacle. He explains the grim mechanics of his craft. A curse tablet, he tells you, is a direct attack. You take a sheet of lead cold, heavy, lifeless metal associated with the underworld and the god set, and you inscribe upon it the name of your target. Then you write the curse. The formulas are specific, honed over centuries. You do not simply wish your enemy ill, you command a specific outcome. You call upon the spirits of those who died unfulfilled or by violence. The old scribe explains, his cloudy eyes seeming to look through you. Their restless anger gives the curse its energy. You write, I bind the tongue of Marcus, so he cannot speak against me in the courts. Or, I bind the limbs of Phidias, so he cannot win the foot race. You are precise. You give the spirit a specific task. The true power, he says, comes from the ritual of deposition. Once the curse is written, the lead sheet is often folded or rolled, and then physically pierced with a nail. This is a powerful act of sympathetic magic, symbolically fixing or pinning the victim, immobilizing them with the spell. The tablet is then delivered to the underworld. You drop it down a well, the scribe says. Or you hide it in the grave of a man who was executed. You give it to the chthonic powers, and they do the work. The spell requires lead, a rusty nail, and a whole lot of bad intentions. It's like a recipe for magical tetanus. This is monstrous, you say, looking at the grim tools. This is the very maleficium my patron fears. The old scribe lets out a dry, rattling laugh. Monstrous boy, this is business. This is protection. Do you think the men who come to me are all powerful sorcerers? No! They are frightened sheep who wish to sharpen their own horns. The world is a battle. Young scribe, if you wait for your enemy to strike, you have already lost. The wise man strikes first, and here, he reveals the core of his trade. Most of his clients are not aggressors, they are acting in what they see as self-defense. He tells you of a merchant, about to face a rival in a lawsuit, who commissioned a tablet to bind the tongue of the opposing advocate. You finally find a magician who specializes in legal disputes. His primary service is writing spells to make sure the opposing counsel gets a sudden, debilitating case of laryngitis on the day of the trial. It's a slightly more aggressive legal strategy than you're used to. The scribe tells you of a potter who, believing a rival was using the evil eye to crack his wares, commissioned a tablet to bind the hands of his competitor so he could no longer work his own wheel. It is a dark and cynical worldview. It assumes a world of constant, invisible warfare, where the only defense is a good offense. You think of your patron Lucius, terrified in his marble villa, convinced his enemies are using these very methods against him. You realize with a jolt that he would see this not as evil, but as a perfectly logical, even necessary, form of protection. The scribe, sensing your scholarly fascination, decides to show you the deeper secrets of his art. He unrolls a tattered papyrus, a sort of spell book filled with his copied formulas. He shows you that the most potent curses are not written in plain Greek or Latin. They are filled with voces magicae, magical words, long strings of vowels aiwewa, believed to be the true sounds of the cosmos, are written alongside palindromes and strange, foreign-sounding names of power, ablanathanalba, Sesinganbar Faranges. He also points out the characteres, jagged, star-like symbols drawn alongside the text. These are the true names of the spirits, he whispers. The language the demons understand. Any fool can write, I curse Marcus. But to write the unspoken name of the demon who will torment him, that is power. You spend hours with the old man, carefully copying the symbols and the strange. Powerful words onto your own scrolls. You are documenting a technology of malice. And the more you learn, the more uneasy you become. The historians of the future will debate the social function of these tablets. Were they a weapon for the powerless against the elite? You can see that. The scribe tells you of a baker who used a tablet against a wealthy man who was trying to buy his property. But he also tells you of nobles using them against each other in political and romantic rivalries. They are not a weapon of one class. They are a weapon of human fear, jealousy, and desperation, available to anyone with a grievance and the coin to pay the scribe's fee. As the day ends, the scribe makes you an offer. He squints at the tablet he is working on, cursing his failing eyesight. I have a client, he says. A woman who believes her former lover's new mistress has cursed her to be barren. She wants a binding spell against the other woman, to close her womb and sour her charms? My hands shake, and my eyes cannot see the fine lines. You have the clear eyes of a young man and a steady hand. Inscribe this for me. I will guide your stylus. You will see how it is truly done. Oh, it is. You freeze. Your mission is to observe, to document, to become a participant, to be the hand that actually writes the words of a curse. Feels like a terrible line to cross. It would make you complicit, a practitioner of the very dark arts you are supposed to be studying. You imagine the unseen woman, the target of this spell, and you feel a pang of empathy. She is no different from your patron, Lucius, a potential victim of a weapon she cannot see. You wrestle with the dilemma. The offer is a chance to gain firsthand practical knowledge, but the cost feels too high. No. You say, your voice firmer than you expected. I am a scholar, not a sorcerer. I will pay you for your time and your knowledge, but my own hand will not write such things. You've decided to maintain your professional scholarly distance. Your resume will continue to read scribe and researcher, and you will try to avoid adding freelance curse writer to the list of your skills. The old scribe shrugs. Not offended. It is a simple business transaction, and you have refused the work. He takes your payment, and you take your leave. You step out of the dusty, claustrophobic workshop and back into the evening air of Alexandria. The sky is turning a deep purple. You walk toward the harbor, your mind reeling. You have filled your scrolls with a new and dangerous chapter for your patron's encyclopedia. You now understand that magical defense can be a brutal, preemptive affair. It is not always about a shield. Sometimes it is about throwing the first spear. But this knowledge leaves a sour taste in your mouth. The amulets of Egypt, for all their strangeness, were tied to a grand, cosmic worldview of life and rebirth. This magic of the lead tablets is small, petty, and personal. It is born of human malice. It feels like a spiritual poison as you walk past the bustling taverns near the docks. You hear the conversations of caravan masters and traders. They speak of their journeys east, across the deserts, to the ancient lands of Mesopotamia, the remnants of the Babylonian and Assyrian empires. They tell stories of those lands. Stories not of human rivals, but of ancient demons with names like Pazuzu and Lamashtu, malevolent spirits of the wind and the night who prey on mortals. And they speak of the ways the people there protect themselves, with different kinds of spells, different kinds of guardians. You realize your journey is far from over. You have studied the shields of the gods and the daggers of men. Now, you must learn how mortals defend themselves against the truly ancient, non-human evils of the world. Your quest must lead you east, out of the familiar world of Greece and Rome, and into the older, dustier fears of Mesopotamia. The journey from Egypt to the ancient lands of Mesopotamia is the most arduous you have yet undertaken. There is no simple sea voyage. Instead, you join a massive merchant caravan, a slow-moving city of men and animals preparing to cross the vast, unforgiving deserts that separate the Nile from the Euphrates. The preparation is a chaotic spectacle of braying donkeys, grumbling camels, and merchants from a dozen nations shouting in a babel of tongues, with the guttural sounds of Aramaic serving as the common language. You secure a place for yourself and your precious scrolls. And for weeks, the world becomes a rhythm of plodding camels and endless sand. You are traveling by camel. It's slow, it smells, and has a tendency to spit at you. But on the bright side, the views of the endless, featureless desert are consistent. The desert itself feels like a place outside of time. A place where the veil between worlds is thin and frayed. The shimmering heat haze plays tricks on your eyes, and the howling of the wind at night sounds like the cries of hungry spirits. The caravan masters post armed guards, not just for bandits, but, they tell you, for the jinni and demons that ride the desert winds. After what feels like an eternity, you arrive in a city on the banks of the great Euphrates River. This is the heart of the Old World, the land of Babylon and Assyria. Now, under the rule of the Parthian Empire, the air is dry and dusty, and the architecture is one of mud brick and towering, ruined ziggurats that haunt the horizon. Here, you discover a new landscape of fear. In Rome, the primary fear was human malice. In Greece, it was the envy of your neighbor. In Egypt, it was ensuring a safe passage after death. Here, In Mesopotamia, the world is understood to be swarming with a host of specific, named, non-human entities whose primary purpose is to inflict misery upon the living. The fear is not of a curse being placed upon you, but of a demon simply deciding to wander into your life. Back in Rome, you worry about your business rival. Here, you worry about Pazuzu, the demon of the southwest wind who wants to give you heat stroke. It really helps to put your professional anxieties into perspective. Your research leads you to a new class of magical practitioner. Not a grand priest, but a local scribe who specializes in Aramaic and Hebrew, working from a small, dark stall in the market. It is from him that you learn the names and natures of the local demonic threats. He speaks of Lamashtu, a terrifying goddess demon with the head of a lioness and the body of a woman, who delights in tormenting pregnant women and kidnapping or killing newborn infants. He tells you of Lilith, the screeching demoness of the night, who seduces men in their sleep and preys upon children. He describes Pazuzu, a fearsome hybrid creature with a canine face, eagle's wings, and a scorpion's tail. The demon of the destructive desert winds that bring pestilence and famine. Faced with such a specific and terrifying rogues gallery of demons, the people of this land have developed a unique and pragmatic form of magical defense, the incantation bowl, or as you come to think of it, the demon trap. The scribe shows you one. It is a simple, unassuming earthenware bowl, the kind one might eat from... The magic is not in the bowl, he explains, his finger tracing the inside surface. It is in the words. He shows you how they are made. He takes a new bowl and, using a special ink made of charcoal, soot, and other ingredients he refuses to name, he begins to write on the inside surface, starting from the center and spiraling outwards. He writes a long, intricate incantation in the looping script of Aramaic. The text of the spell, he explains, is a kind of legal document. It is a spiritual restraining order. It begins by invoking a higher power, sometimes the God of the Hebrews, Yahweh, sometimes a collection of angels and other divine names. Then, it directly addresses the demon. It will often name the specific demon it is meant to trap. Like Lamashtu, it legally identifies the owners of the home in the name of Behram, son of Miriam, and his wife, an angel's daughter, thereby establishing jurisdiction. Finally, it commands the spirit, using the authority of the divine names, to be bound, sealed, and to depart from the house and its inhabitants, never to return. One of the most fascinating forms he shows you is a divorce decree for Lilith. If a man is troubled by lustful dreams or nocturnal emissions, believed to be the work of the demoness, he can commission a bowl that is written as a legal writ of divorce. It formally and legally severs all ties with the demon. I have sent you a bill of divorcement. The scribe reads from a formula on a scroll. As a man releases his wife, so I release you. Take your divorce writ and your marriage deed, and go. Flee, and depart from this house. It is a remarkable approach, treating a supernatural terror not with a prayer, but with a lawsuit. Once the incantation is complete, the bowl's function as a trap is activated. You bury it under the floor of the house, the scribe tells you, usually near the doorway or in the four corners of the main room, and you must place it upside down. The logic is elegantly simple. When the demon enters the house, it is drawn to the power of the inscribed words. It follows the spiral of text, reading its own fate, and is drawn to the center, where it becomes trapped. The inverted bowl then acts as a permanent prison, holding the demon fast for all eternity. So the height of home security technology in Mesopotamia is burying an upside-down bowl in your floor with a magical restraining order written on it. It's certainly more affordable than hiring a guard. You witness the process firsthand when a young couple, their faces etched with terror, comes to the scribe's stall. Their week-old son has a fever and has not stopped crying for 2 days. They are convinced it is the work of Lamashtu. The scribe listens patiently, then begins his work. He takes a fresh bowl and begins to write. His hand moving in a steady spiral, he incorporates the names of the father, mother, and the infant child directly into the spell, tailoring the protection specifically to them, in the very center of the bowl, before starting the spiral. He draws a crude, stick-like figure with its hands and feet bound. It is the demon, already depicted in its captive state. The scribe's work reveals the syncretic nature of magic in this crossroads of cultures. Future scholars might debate whether these practices are purely Jewish, Babylonian, or Persian in origin. You see that they are a fusion of everything. The scribe writes in Aramaic, invokes the Hebrew god, but also includes the names of angels, and binds a demon with a Babylonian name. It is a practical magic, using any and every source of power available when the bowl is finished. He hands it to the young father, along with instructions on how to bury it. The look of profound relief on the couple's faces is something you will never forget. They clutch the simple earthenware bowl as if it were the most precious object in the world. For them, it is medicine, law, and Holy Writ all rolled into one. It is their only defense in a world filled with ancient, hungry things. You spend weeks with the scribe, documenting the different formulas, carefully copying the swirling Aramaic script and the strange names of power. You purchase a new, uninscribed bowl from a potter to take back to your patron as an example of the form. You have learned that here. Protection is about identifying your enemy and creating a custom-made trap for it. As you prepare to leave the city and rejoin a caravan heading further east, you spend your evenings in the caravanserai, the great public courtyard where traders gather. You listen to their stories, and you begin to hear of a different philosophy, one from the Persian heartlands. The traders from that region scoff at the idea of trapping individual demons. Why build 1,000 traps for 1,000 rats? One merchant with a long, black beard tells you. When you can purify the whole house so that no rats will enter, he speaks of a great, cosmic struggle, not between humanity and a host of minor demons, but between a single, all-powerful principle of good and light, Ahura Mazda and a single, all-powerful principle of evil and darkness, Angra Mainyu. The protection they practice, he says, is not about bowls and spells. It is about choosing a side in this cosmic war. It is about dedicating one's life to Asha purity, truth, and order. This, he insists, is the only true shield against the forces of darkness. Your interest is ignited once more. You have studied shields and swords, and now magical traps. This Persian idea sounds like something else entirely, a suit of spiritual armor, forged from one's own actions and moral choices. Your encyclopedia would be incomplete without it. Your journey must continue east, towards the fire temples of the Zoroastrians. To understand this grand, dualistic vision of the universe and its unique promise of protection, the caravan pushes eastward from the flat, dusty plains of Mesopotamia into the formidable highlands of the Iranian plateau. This is the heartland of the Parthian Empire, but its culture feels older, its spirit forged in the traditions of ancient Persia. The landscape becomes a vast, breathtaking expanse of arid plateaus and sharp, jagged mountains. The air is thinner, drier. The very quality of the light seems different, cleaner, sharper, more intense. You begin to see the signs of a different faith in the small towns. You see men in simple, clean white shirts. A sacred garment, you learn, is called a sedre, with a woven cord tied around their waist. From a distance, you see structures that are clearly not temples in the Greco-Roman or Mesopotamian sense. On one remote hilltop, you see a strange, circular tower, open to the sky. One of the Persian merchants in your caravan points to it. A dakma, he says, his voice hushed with reverence. A tower of silence where we give our dead back to the sky. You realize you have entered a world with a fundamentally different understanding of purity, death, and the very nature of evil. Your quest for knowledge leads you. After many inquiries and the presentation of a letter from a respected Zoroastrian merchant, to a fire temple, an attar, nestled in a mountain valley. The building is simple, unassuming, but inside, you feel a palpable sense of clean, quiet power. In the center of a dark chamber, a fire burns in a large brass urn. It is not a great roaring bonfire, but a steady, eternal flame, tended by a priest in a white robe, his mouth covered by a cloth veil to prevent his breath from contaminating the sacred fire. This is Atar, the living symbol of the supreme being, the head priest, or Magus, a man with a long white beard and eyes that seem to see into a different reality. Agrees to speak with you. You explain your mission, your search for the methods by which men protect themselves from curses and evil forces. The Magus listens patiently. When you are finished, he shakes his head slowly. You speak of trapping demons in bowls, he says, his voice calm and measured. That is like building 1,000 dams to stop 1,000 trickles from a poisoned spring. We do not concern ourselves with the trickles. We seek to purify the spring itself. He then explains to you the core of his faith, the worldview of the prophet Zoroaster. The universe, he teaches, is a battlefield. It is the stage for a great cosmic war between two co-eternal opposing forces. On one side is Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, the creator of all that is good, the source of light, truth, order, and life, a principle they call Asha. On the other side is Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, the author of all that is evil, the source of darkness, lies, chaos, and death, a principle known as Drudge, every sickness that afflicts the body, the Magus explains, every lie that poisons the mind, every curse whispered in malice, every demon that haunts the night. These are not independent evils. They are merely the soldiers, the manifestations of the one great lie, the Druge. To fight them one by one is a fool's errand. Then how do you protect yourselves? You ask. We do not build traps for the soldiers of darkness, he says, his eyes fixing on the eternal flame. We build a fortress of light within ourselves. Angra Mainyu and his demons cannot touch that which is pure. Druge cannot exist where Asha is strong. The greatest protection, the only true protection, is purity. This is a radical, stunning new philosophy. Protection is not an amulet you wear or a spell you buy. It is a state of being. It is a lifelong commitment to a side in a cosmic war. So, in Mesopotamia, you play whack-a-mole with individual demons. Here, it's more like a grand cosmic chess match, and you are one of the pawns. It's a promotion, of a sort. The Magus teaches you the rites of purity that are the armor of his people. He explains the sacredness of the natural elements. Fire, as the son of Ahura Mazda, is the ultimate purifying agent, and water is also sacred, a source of life and cleansing. This is why, he explains, a Zoroastrian must never defile these elements. To burn a corpse would be to contaminate the sacred fire with dead matter. The ultimate work of Angra Mainyu. To bury a corpse would be to defile the sacred earth. This is the reason for the Towers of Silence, where the bodies of the dead are laid out to be cleanly stripped by vultures. A sky burial that avoids contaminating the elements. He shows you the Kusti ritual. Several times a day, a devout Zoroastrian will perform a ritual washing, and then untie and retie the sacred cord around their waist. The cord, woven from 72 threads, represents the tenets of their faith, the tying of the knots. accompanied by specific prayers, is a daily, conscious act of rededicating oneself to Ahura Mazda and reaffirming one's opposition to Angra Mainyu. It is the spiritual equivalent of a soldier checking his armor and sharpening his sword before battle. You learn of the intense preoccupation with avoiding contamination. Or Nasu, contact with any form of dead matter, a corpse. But also shed hair and nail clippings is considered a point of entry for demonic influence. The Magus explains that if a man cuts his nails and leaves the clippings scattered, a Daeva, a demon, can take them and use them as a weapon against him. A form of sympathetic magic that echoes the logic of the curse tablets you learned about in Egypt. Therefore, there is a specific ritual for disposing of them. They must be carefully collected. A prayer recited over them, and then buried in a small hole dug in the earth. They have very specific rules for how to dispose of your toenail clippings to prevent demonic warfare. It adds a certain level of high-stakes drama to personal grooming. As you learn more, you're struck by the profound moral clarity of this dualistic system. It is so different from the chaotic, squabbling families of gods in Greece and Rome. Here, the lines are clearly drawn. Good versus evil, light versus dark, truth versus the lie. Future scholars will debate the immense influence of this Persian worldview on the younger religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, particularly their concepts of God and Satan, heaven and hell, and the final day of judgment. You, as a student of the world's beliefs, can already see how potent and compelling this grand narrative is. You are privileged to witness a purification ceremony. A man from a nearby village, suffering from a lingering illness and plagued by nightmares, is brought to the temple. He believes he is afflicted by a sickness demon, a servant of Angra Mainyu. But there is no incantation bowl, no binding spell. Instead, the man is led through a series of rituals. He drinks consecrated water. A priest chants verses from the Avesta, their holy scriptures, the words ancient and powerful. The man is ritually washed while the prayers continue. The goal is not to address the demon at all. The goal is to strengthen the man's inner light, to cleanse his body and spirit of any impurity, to fill him so completely with the divine essence of Asha that he becomes an inhospitable environment for the demon. A creature of darkness cannot survive in a vessel filled with pure light. After the ceremony, the man, looking weak but visibly calmer, is sent home with instructions for continued prayers and rites of purity. The cure is not an event, it is a change in lifestyle. You spend a month at the fire temple, a time of profound intellectual and spiritual realignment. You fill your scrolls with the core tenets of the Zoroastrian faith, the principles of Asha and Druj, and the intricate rules of their purity codes. You come to understand that for these people, preventing a curse is a lifelong, active process. It is the sum of 1,000 small choices to speak the truth, to treat others fairly, to keep one's body and home clean, and to perform the daily rituals that align oneself with the forces of good. As you prepare to rejoin a caravan that is now heading west, back towards the Mediterranean, you share some of your findings with a Jewish merchant who has become a friend on your long journey. He has listened with great interest to your studies of Roman, Greek, Egyptian, and Persian beliefs. Yes, he says, stroking his beard thoughtfully. We too believe in a single, all-powerful God who commands us to live righteously. Purity of the heart is a great shield, but we have other stories in my homeland. Judea, not of shields, but of guardians. He lowers his voice. We have legends of the most holy of our rabbis, men who knew the secret, creative names of God, being able to create a protector from lifeless clay, a servant of immense strength, animated not by a demon, but by the very word of the Almighty. A golem, the word is new to you, strange and filled with power. A guardian made of dust and holy words. It is a form of protection unlike any you have yet encountered. your mission, which you had thought was leading you to the furthest edges of the known world, now pulls you back. You must go west. You must travel to the hills of Judea and learn what you can of these legends of protectors born from the earth itself. Your caravan turns west, leaving the high, arid plateaus of Persia behind and moving into the Roman-controlled province of Syria. The journey is long, but the landscape becomes more familiar. The presence of Roman milestones and legionary patrols a sign that you are re-entering the world you once knew. From Syria, you travel south into the rugged, hilly province of Judea. The land itself feels ancient, weighted with the history of prophets and kings. The air is thick with a spiritual intensity unlike any you have experienced before. You arrive in the great city of Jerusalem. It is a city of stone and faith, a place of pilgrimage that throngs with people from all over the world. Dominating the entire city is the Temple Mount, where the recently rebuilt Great Temple of Herod stands. A magnificent, gleaming structure of white marble and gold. So vast it seems like a small city in its own right. The streets are a chaotic mix of Jewish pilgrims, Roman soldiers, Greek merchants, and Arab traders. The city is beautiful, holy, and incredibly tense. You get the feeling that asking someone what's new could result in a 4-hour theological and political debate. You decide to stick to asking for directions. The Jewish merchant who befriended you in the caravan introduces you to a community of scribes and rabbis in the city. They are scholars, their lives dedicated to the study of their sacred text, the Torah. They are wary of you at first, a Gentile scribe in the service of a powerful Roman. They fear you are a spy, or that you seek their knowledge for some profane purpose. But you approach them with the genuine respect of a fellow scholar, explaining that your patron seeks only to understand the ways men protect themselves from evil. Over many days of careful conversation, demonstrating your knowledge of their history and your respect for their beliefs, you slowly earn a measure of their trust. They begin to teach you, and you learn that their worldview is profoundly different from any you have yet encountered. It is a strict, unyielding monotheism. There is only one God, a being without form or image, whose name is so holy it is rarely spoken aloud. This God is the creator of all things, and all things, even demons and spirits of evil, are ultimately subject to his immense power. There is no cosmic war between two equal forces. As the Zoroastrians believe, there is only God, and the shadow cast by those who turn away from him. The greatest protection. A wise old rabbi tells you, his long beard streaked with gray, is not an amulet or an incantation. It is a righteous life. It is adherence to the law that God gave to our people through the prophet Moses. The law is our shield. Your research begins by documenting this principle. You learn that for them. Protection is a matter of covenant and observance, keeping the dietary laws of kashrut, observing the Sabbath as a day of holy rest. Daily prayer, these are not just customs. They are acts that strengthen the bond between the community and their God. And it is this bond that forms their primary spiritual defense. You observe the more tangible forms of this defense. You see on the doorpost of every Jewish home a mezuzah. It is a small, decorated case containing a tiny, handwritten scroll of parchment. On the scroll are verses from the Torah, including the foundational prayer. The Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. The mezuzah is a constant, physical reminder of God's presence and his commandments. It sanctifies the home, turning the doorway into a protected, holy threshold. It's like a divine security system that reminds you not to forget your keys and protects you from demons. It's very efficient. You also learn of the tefillin, or phylacteries. You watch men unpack small, black leather boxes, from which leather straps protrude. They carefully bind one box to their forehead and the other to their arm, positioning them over the heart and mind before they begin their morning prayers inside each box. You learn are tiny scrolls containing verses from the Torah. It is a literal fulfillment of the commandment to bind God's law as a sign upon their hands and as a symbol between their eyes. It is a way of armoring the body and mind directly with the holy word. You ask about amulets or kamea, like the ones you have seen elsewhere. The stricter rabbis frown upon them as a slide into pagan superstition. But a younger scribe quietly admits to you that among the common people, they are widely used. These are often small pieces of parchment or metal, inscribed with biblical verses, particularly the Psalms or the hidden names of protective angels, then folded and placed in a small pouch to be worn around the neck. They are used to ward off sickness, bad luck, or the terrors of the night, particularly the demoness Lilith, when you have gained their confidence. You finally ask about the deeper legends, the stories you heard from the merchant about a more powerful, more direct form of protection. At first, you are met with silence and cautionary glances. This, they tell you, is not a subject for idle talk. To speak of it is to tread on dangerous, holy ground. But seeing that your interest is scholarly and not profane, the old rabbi finally agrees to tell you the hushed legends of the golem. This is not a story of common magic, the rabbi says, his voice a low whisper. It is a story about the awesome and terrifying power of God's own creative word, and the peril of man attempting to wield it. He explains that the legends say that in a time of extreme peril, when the community faces an existential threat, a holy man of perfect purity and deep mystical knowledge, a knowledge of the Kabbalah, the secret heart of their scripture can perform a terrible and wondrous act. He goes alone to the bank of a river and, chanting prayers, he fashions a man-like figure from the pure, wet clay. The figure is lifeless, a mere sculpture. The secret to its animation, the rabbi explains, lies not in a demon or a spirit, but in the holy name of God himself. In our tradition, he whispers, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are not just symbols for sounds. They are the very building blocks of creation. To know how to combine them correctly is to know the formula of life itself. The rabbi then performs the final ritual. Through deep meditation and prayer, he might write one of the secret, true names of God on a piece of parchment and place it in the golem's mouth. Or, in the most common version of the legend, he inscribes a single word on the clay figure's forehead, Amat Emet. The word means truth. The rabbi explains, and the truth of God is the source of all life, infused with the power of the holy word. The clay figure stirs. It rises. It is a golem. It is not truly alive. It has no soul, no free will, no ability to speak. It is a powerful but literal-minded automaton, a creature of immense strength whose only purpose is to obey its creator's commands and to protect the community from its enemies. But this power, the rabbi warns, his eyes dark with the weight of the legend, is a dangerous thing. It is not meant for men to control. The stories always end with a lesson. The golem, in its literal-mindedness, can misunderstand its orders. It can grow so large and powerful that it becomes a threat itself. The creator must always know how to undo what he has done. He explains the method of deanimation. The rabbi must approach the golem and erase the first letter, the Aleph A, from the word Emet Amt on its forehead. This changes the word to Mt Met. The word means dead. The rabbi says, and so the power of truth is removed, and the creature returns to the lifeless clay from which it was formed. You listen, spellbound. The scholars of the future will debate whether these golem legends were meant to be taken literally, or if they were complex allegories about the creative power of language and the hubris of man. But listening to the old rabbi in the heart of Jerusalem, you feel the profound belief behind the story. It's the ultimate break glass in case of emergency magical defense, build a superhero out of mud. But the stories all seem to end with the superhero going rogue and breaking the city. There are clearly some bugs to work out in the system. You have found the most powerful form of protective magic yet. One that is not a shield or a trap, but a guardian. Born from the earth and animated by the sacred name of God, you spend many more weeks in Jerusalem, filling your scrolls with these stories and laws. Finally, the time comes to leave. You thank the rabbis for sharing their guarded wisdom. Your quest has taken you from the far eastern fire temples back to the heart of a Roman province. You feel as if your journey is now circling back on itself. You have learned of Roman charms, Greek eyes, Egyptian amulets, Mesopotamian demons, Persian purity, and Judean guardians. As you join a ship in the port of Jaffa, heading west once more across the Great Sea, you wonder what other fusions of belief exist in the cosmopolitan port cities of the Mediterranean, where these different streams of fear and faith meet and mingle. Your ship plies the familiar waters of the Mediterranean, heading west, after the intense spiritual landscapes of Persia and Judea. The Greco-Roman world feels both familiar and strangely new. You make port in a bustling city on the coast of Anatolia, a place like Ephesus, an ancient Greek city now thriving as a major center of Roman commerce. It is a true melting pot, a place where Roman legionaries walk the same marble-paved streets as Persian silk merchants and Egyptian priests. It is the perfect laboratory to observe how different streams of belief mix and mingle. Here, your focus shifts. In your travels, you have documented how people protect their bodies with amulets, their homes with spirit traps, their communities with guardians. Now, you begin to notice the magic of the spaces in between. You see the small, strange offerings left at city gates, the symbols carved over doorways, and the particular rituals associated with crossroads. You come to understand that these transitional places, these thresholds, are considered spiritually weak points, wounds in the fabric of the world through which malevolent forces can enter. Your inquiries lead you to an old woman who sits near the city's main gate, selling herbal remedies and telling fortunes for a small coin. She is a woman of the common folk, and her knowledge is not the high theology of a temple priest, but the practical, time-worn wisdom of folk magic. A doorway is neither inside nor outside. She tells you, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. A crossroads belongs to no one and everyone. These are places of transit, where the veils are thin, the spirits of the restless dead, the wandering ghosts, the mischief-making demons, they linger at such places. Looking for a way in, a home with an unguarded door is an open invitation to misfortune. You begin to document the specific ways people guard these thresholds. You see echoes of things you have learned before. You see Roman households with a small carving of the two-faced god Janus by their door, to watch both who comes and who goes. You see Greek homes with a small pillar topped with a bust of Apollo Aegius, Apollo of the streets, to protect the house from the dangers of the world outside. But the dominant power in these liminal spaces, the one spoken of with the most fear and respect, is a goddess you have heard mentioned in curses but have not yet studied as a protector, Hecate. The old woman explains her nature. Hecate is an ancient and profoundly powerful goddess of the underworld, a chthonic deity whose power is tied to the night, the moonless dark, and the spirit world. She is the goddess of pharmakeia magic, sorcery, and witchcraft. She is the mistress of ghosts and the patroness of necromancers. But, the woman explains, this is precisely why she is also a powerful protector. Who better to guard you against ghosts and witches than their queen? It's like making the king of the wolves the head of your sheep guarding committee. It's a bold strategy. You learn that Hecate is often depicted in a triple form, with 3 bodies standing back to back, so that she can look down all 3 roads of a crossroads simultaneously. This is why she is Hecate Trivia, the goddess of 3 ways, the ultimate deity of choices, transitions, and liminal spaces. Her sacred animal is the dog. and the sound of dogs howling in the dead of night is said to herald her spectral procession as she wanders the earth, accompanied by a terrifying retinue of restless ghosts and hellhounds. Because she is so dangerous, appeasing her is a matter of critical importance for many. This leads you to the most important ritual associated with her, the Hecate's Deepnon, or Hecate's Supper. The old woman tells you that on the last day of the lunar month, at the dark of the moon, families will perform a purification ritual within their homes. They will sweep the floors, and all the collected refuse, the dust, the dirt. Scraps of food is gathered together. This physical dirt is believed to have absorbed the spiritual filth, the bad luck and negative energy that has accumulated in the house over the month. This refuse, along with specific offerings like garlic, fish, and specially baked Hecate's cakes, is then placed in a basket. As darkness falls, a member of the household takes this basket to the nearest three-way crossroads. There, they leave it as an offering, a supper for the goddess and her ghostly hounds. It is a scapegoat meal. You are not offering her your finest things, you are offering her your filth, your bad luck, your anxieties, for her to consume and carry away into the night. There is one rule of paramount importance. After leaving the offering, you must walk away immediately, and no matter what you hear behind you, be it the howling of dogs, strange whispers, or the footsteps of an unseen host, you must never look back. To look back is to risk catching a glimpse of the goddess and her entourage, a sight said to drive a person mad or to mark them for death. The most important part of the ritual is to leave the offering and walk away without looking back, given that she travels with a pack of ghosts and hellhounds. This seems less like a religious rule and more like very, very good advice. You see the evidence of this everywhere, at crossroads throughout the city. You see the remains of these nightly offerings. You see how people hurry past these intersections after dark, their eyes fixed straight ahead. The fear of Hecate is a living, breathing part of the city's spiritual life. Your conversations with different people reveal the goddess's complex nature, a subject future classicists will debate for centuries. Was she always a fearsome queen of witches? The old woman speaks of Hecate's older roles, as a protector of women in childbirth, a goddess of fertility. It seems her character has evolved, her darker, more terrifying aspects coming to the forefront in the popular imagination. Yet, even in her fearfulness, she remains a protector, a dangerous power one can appeal to for safety. In this cosmopolitan port city, you see a spectacular fusion of beliefs. You document a single doorway protected by multiple layers of magic. A small, worn bust of Apollo stands on a pedestal. Hanging from the lintel is a Roman fastenum and a Greek blue-eye bead. Clicking together in the breeze, and on the threshold itself, you see a smear of dried garlic, a practice common in the East for warding off demons. People, you realize, do not choose one system over another. They hedge their bets. They layer their protections like they layer their clothes in winter, hoping that if one charm fails, another will hold. Your own understanding of your quest deepens. You began by seeking objects of protection, amulets, bowls. Then you learned of states of being the purity of the Zoroastrians, the righteousness of the Jews. Then you learned of created guardians in the Golem legends. Now, you are learning about the protection of space itself. It is a far more holistic and complex picture of magical defense than you or your patron could have ever imagined. You have filled several more scrolls with your detailed notes on Hecate, on the rituals of the crossroads, on the layering of protective traditions. You feel that the final major piece of your research is at hand. You have traveled the known world from east to west, and now the path leads you home, back to the heart of the empire where your journey began. You stand on the docks once more, watching the ships. The scent of the sea now a familiar comfort, with all the incredible knowledge you have gathered from the far corners of the world. You wonder how the simple Roman traditions you first documented will now appear to your well-traveled eyes. Will they seem crude and simplistic, or will you now understand them on a new, more profound level? You book passage on a ship bound for Brundisium, on the Italian coast. The final leg of your journey has begun. You're going home. Ooh. The journey back across the Great Sea is a time of quiet reflection. The ship traces a path from the coasts of Judea and Syria, island hopping through the Aegean, before making the long crossing to Italy. At each port, you see the world with new eyes. You see a Greek sailor making the sign of the horned hand, a Roman merchant touching a fastenum charm before a business deal, a Syrian trader whispering a prayer as he loads his cargo. You no longer see these as isolated superstitions. You see them as different dialects of a single, universal language, the language of fear, and the desperate hope for protection. When you finally disembark at the port of Brundisium and set foot on Italian soil, the feeling is one of profound strangeness. The air, the light, the very scent of the earth is familiar. Yet you feel like a foreigner in your own land. The Latin spoken around you is your native tongue, but your mind is now filled with the cadences of Greek, Aramaic, and Egyptian. You have been gone for years. The world has changed, and so have you. The journey north to Rome along the Appian Way is a reversal of the marches of your memory. As you get closer to the city, it rises from the plains to meet you, as vast and chaotic as you remember. But you see it differently now. Your gaze is expert. You see the city not just as a collection of buildings, but as a tapestry of layered magical defenses. You see the household shrines, the symbols carved over doorways, the amulets worn by passers-by, and you understand them not just as Roman customs, but in the context of all the other beliefs you have witnessed. You arrive at the villa of your patron, Lucius Cornelius Scipio, a man transformed by time and his own paranoia. He is older, his hair thinner and whiter, but his eyes burn with the same feverish intensity. He greets you not as a returning servant, but as a savior, a bringer of long-awaited hope. He falls upon your collection of scrolls, unrolling them with trembling hands. Your scrolls represent a library of human fear. There are the detailed drawings of Egyptian amulets, the swirling Aramaic text of Mesopotamian incantation bowls, the legalistic formulas of Greek binding spells, the pure and terrible dualism of the Zoroastrians, the hushed legends of the Judean golem. Lucius pores over them for days, his hope slowly turning to frustration. But which one is the strongest? He demands, his voice thin and reedy. Which one is the ultimate shield? Is it a bowl, an amulet, a prayer? I need a weapon. Boy, not a library. You try to explain what you have learned on your journey, that there is no single perfect defense. Each system of magic is a response to a different perception of evil. The Greeks fear human envy, so they seek to deflect it. The Mesopotamians fear specific demons, so they create specific traps. The Persians see a cosmic war, so their defense is a life of moral purity. You've just presented him with a world's worth of complex theological and magical systems, and he basically wants to know which one has the best warranty. It is then you realize that your long quest has given you a measure of wisdom, while his fearful waiting has only deepened his ignorance. He has not learned. He has only festered. Your work is not yet finished, he finally says, a new idea taking root in his paranoid mind. You have brought me the folk magic, the superstitions of the provinces. But what of Rome itself? What of the state? The very safety and success of our republic is a form of protection. How does the state prevent disaster? How do the gods of Rome protect Rome? You must document this. This is the final chapter. And so, you begin the last phase of your research, turning your well-traveled eye back upon your own culture. You seek to understand the official, state-sanctioned methods of preventing misfortune. This journey takes you into the world of the Roman priesthood, specifically the ancient and powerful College of Augurs. Through your patron's influence, You are granted an audience with a senior augur, a man who holds the spiritual fate of the Republic in his hands. He is a politician as much as a priest, and he explains his science with a grave seriousness. The safety of Rome, the augur tells you, depends upon the pax deorum, the peace of the gods. We do not act without their favor. To do so would be to invite calamity. Before any great undertaking, before a general marches to battle, before the Senate passes a new law, before we lay the foundation of a new temple, we must first take the auspices. We must ask the gods if they approve. This is not superstition. This is the foundation of our state. He explains the methods of their sacred science. The most ancient and respected method is observing the flight of birds. The augur would define a sacred space in the sky, a templum, and interpret the signs within it. An eagle, the bird of Jupiter, flying from the left, might be a powerful good omen. A flock of crows, a bird of ill omen. Flying from the right could be a sign of divine disapproval, enough to postpone a battle. He also tells you of the sacred chickens. Before a military campaign, a special priest would offer grain to a cage of chickens kept for this purpose. If they ate with such gusto that the grain fell from their beaks, the omen was spectacular. If they refused to eat, it was a terrible sign. He tells you the famous cautionary tale of the consul Claudius Pulcher during the war with Carthage, when the chickens refused to eat before a great naval battle. The impious consul threw them into the sea, shouting, "If they will not eat, then let them drink." He then sailed into one of the most disastrous defeats in Roman history. The fate of the entire Roman Republic, you note, could depend on whether or not a chicken is hungry. It's a system with a certain rustic charm. You also research how the state responds to prodigia, or prodigies unnatural, terrifying events that are seen as direct warnings from the gods. A statue weeping blood, a rain of stones, a cow speaking with a human voice, when such a thing occurs. The Senate is convened, and the Sibylline books, a collection of ancient prophecies, are consulted. Based on the prophecies, great public ceremonies of purification, or lustratio, are ordered to cleanse the city of its spiritual stain and appease the angry gods, thereby preventing the disaster that the prodigy foretold. This state-level preventative magic is a fascinating contrast to the personal charms you've studied. But you also turn your attention back to the domestic sphere, to the lararium, the household shrine you first documented years ago. With your new comparative knowledge, you see it in a different light. The Mesopotamian bowl is a trap for an external enemy. The Jewish mezuzah is a declaration of faith and a shield at the boundary. The Roman lararium is different. It is a relationship. It is a home for the guardian spirits who are part of the family. The lustres and penates. The family makes daily offerings of food, wine, and incense, not out of fear, but out of familial duty. In return, the spirits actively guard the home, the family members, and the food stores. It is a daily, living pact of mutual care as you compile these final notes. You see the full spectrum of Roman belief. You see the debate that historians of the future will have how much of this was genuine religious belief, and how much was political manipulation. You see it in the cynical eyes of your patron, Lucius, who believes the augurs can be bought to produce any omen a politician desires. And you see it in the grave, pious face of the augur, who sincerely believes that his science is the only thing that maintains the pax deorum and keeps Rome safe from chaos. Your work is finally done. The scrolls containing your research now fill a large chest. They are an unprecedented catalog of the ways humanity holds back the darkness with amulets, with traps, with purity, with guardians, with gestures, with prayers, with laws, and with the entrails of sacred chickens. You have fulfilled your patron's commission. But sitting in the quiet of the library, looking at the mountain of scrolls, you realize he will never be satisfied. He was looking for a simple, magical cure for his fear, a perfect shield. You have brought him a world of complexity, a mirror showing that all peoples in all lands share his same fundamental anxieties. You realize the final chapter is not for him, but for you. You must now synthesize this vast, disparate knowledge. You must find the common thread if one exists. That runs through all of these rituals, from the back alleys of Rome to the fire temples of Persia. Your quest to build a shield for your patron has ended. Your quest to forge one for yourself has just begun. You return to the quiet solitude of the library in Lucius's villa. A traveler returned from a world of ghosts and demons. You are surrounded by the fruits of your long journey, a small chest filled with protective amulets from a dozen cultures, and a much larger one overflowing with the scrolls on which you have meticulously documented the world's fears. Your patron gave you a commission to build him a shield. You have returned with a library. Now, your final task begins. It is the task of synthesis. You spend months in the quiet of the library. The scent of old parchment a familiar comfort after years of smelling desert dust and sea salt. You unroll your scrolls, laying them out like a map of the human soul. You read your own words, written in the hand of a younger, more naive man, and you begin to weave the threads together. To write the final chapter of your great work, you conclude that the foundation of all the magic you have witnessed is the same. It is the universal human need to give a name and a face to the chaos of the world. Misfortune is random, impersonal, and terrifying. But a curse has a source. A curse has a reason. It transforms a chaotic universe into a world of hidden rules. And if there are rules, then there can be defenses. All the magic you have seen, you write, is a desperate, brilliant attempt to impose order on the unpredictable. You begin to categorize the vast array of practices you have studied. Seeing a pattern emerge, you determine that all protective magic falls into one of three great philosophies. The first, you name the shield. This is the magic of passive defense. It is the Egyptian ankh worn around the neck, the Greek eye bead pinned to a baby's tunic, the Roman bulla, the Jewish mezuzah on the doorpost. These are objects imbued with a holy or symbolic power. They are placed or worn, and then trusted to do their work silently, to deflect unseen arrows of malice or envy, to create a constant, protective field around a person or a place. The second philosophy you call the sword. This is the magic of active, aggressive defense. It is the dark art of the binding spells and lead curse tablets you learned about in Alexandria. This is not a magic of waiting to be attacked. It is the practice of identifying a threat, a business rival, a political enemy, a romantic competitor, and neutralizing them with a preemptive magical strike. It is a cynical magic, born of the belief that the world is a battlefield and the best defense is a swift defense. But it is the third category that you realize is the most profound. You call it the fortress. This is not a magic of objects or spells, but of one's entire way of life. It is the Zoroastrian's unwavering commitment to purity and truth in the cosmic war against darkness. It is the Jews' devout adherence to God's holy law. It is even present in the Romans daily. Dutiful offerings to the lares and penates, the spirits that guard his home. The fortress is the belief that true protection comes from within. It is the building of a soul so strong, so pure, so aligned with divine order, that evil can find no crack through which to enter. While you are lost in this work, you are a distant observer of your patron's final decline. Lucius, despite having access to all your research, finds no peace. His fear is a bottomless pit. He attempts to use every method at once. He wears a strange collection of amulets from Egypt and Greece. You hear rumors that he has paid a scribe to create a binding spell against a senator he despises. He makes frantic, oversized sacrifices at his household shrine. Your patron is now simultaneously wearing a Greek eye bead, an Egyptian ankh, and carrying a Roman fascinum in his pocket. He's so magically protected it's a wonder he can still walk. And yet, he's more terrified than ever. His vast collection of magical shields becomes the walls of his own prison. He trusts no one, sees curses in every shadow, and finally passes away in his sleep. A wealthy, powerful, and utterly terrified old man. His death is a final, tragic lesson for you. All the amulets in the world cannot protect a man from the curse he carries within his own heart. You finish your great work. In the final lines of the final scroll, you write your own conclusion, the truth that your long journey has taught you. You write that you have traveled the world in search of a perfect shield against evil, and you have found it. But it is not an object. It is not a spell. It is not even a state of perfect purity. The greatest protection, you write. The only one that truly works is Sophia, wisdom. It is the wisdom to understand what is within your control and what is not. It is the wisdom to live a good and honorable life, not out of a fearful desire for reward or a terror of punishment, but because it is its own reward. It is the wisdom to know that envy, malice, and fear are poisons, and they do the most harm not to their intended victims, but to the hearts that harbor them. The greatest shield, you conclude, is a quiet mind after years of travel and research. You've discovered the ultimate secret to preventing curses. Try to be a decent person and don't worry too much. This conclusion is probably not what your patron paid all that gold for. With that final sentence written, your quest is over. You have forged your own shield, not of gold or lead or magic words, but of understanding. And so your story, the story of the fearful scribe, comes to a gentle close. You live out the rest of your days not as a traveler, but as a quiet scholar, perhaps as a librarian in the very villa where your journey began. The great chest filled with your scrolls, your shield of wisdom, sits in a corner of the library, a silent testament to a life-changing quest. The amulets and charms you collected are put away, their power fading from immediate reality into the soft, dusty realm of memory. The world moves on. The specific fears of the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, they change. New empires rise and fall. New faiths are born. The old demons are given new names, and new methods are devised to hold them at bay. But the fundamental human need for a shield against the darkness of the unknown remains. As the years pass, you become an old man. The memories of your journey, the scent of the desert, the flash of the Pharos lighthouse, the sight of the fire in the Persian temple become less like experiences and more like scenes from a dream. The world of curses and charms that you once inhabited with such intensity grows distant. A story from another time, and that is what it is now. For you, listening here, it is just a story. The ancient fears, while so powerful in their time, no longer hold sway. The shadows are just shadows. The run of bad luck is just a run of bad luck. You are safe now, in your own time, in your own quiet room. The world of restless ghosts and envious glances has faded away, leaving only the soft sound of my voice and the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Let the knowledge of that safety be your own shield tonight. Let the quiet of this moment be your protection. There are no curses here. There is only peace.